What's going on, guys, and welcome to Who to Sign For. Now in this series I'm giving you my recommendations on what players to sign for a specific team in career mode, but before we go on I will say that the signings you'll see aren't designed to be realistic and that the player ratings and potential of the players may vary depending on what database you're using and how they perform for you during the season. Obviously you don't have to follow all the tips, this is really just a set of guidelines to give you a hand if you're stuck for ideas and want some suggestions on what players you could sign for a certain club. This is mainly aimed at those of you out there who may be new to the game and just need a little bit of advice, or for those of you out there who just want a few recommendations on what players to sign for a team that you may be using in career mode this year. So yes, in today's episode of Who to Sign For, guys, we are going to stay in the Bundesliga and take a look at Borussia Monchengladbach. Yes, that's right, the lads from Borussia Park, who I have to say definitely have one of the most challenging first seasons in store in this year's FIFA career mode for a major top tier European league. Now these guys have got a 4.5 star team, but the objectives are incredibly strong in the first season. This is definitely the team for those of you out there who want a challenge in this year's career mode. In the first season, you got to finish in the top 4 in the Bundesliga, which is going to be incredibly difficult to do because you know Bayern Munich always win it, which means only 3 spots will be available. And when you got to compete with the likes of Dortmund and RB Leipzig and Bayer Leverkusen, it's going to be very tough to finish in the top 4 place, even with, again, a 4.5 star team. You got to win the Europa League, go all the way in your European competition and pick up the trophy. Reached around the 16 in the DFB Pokal, okay, that's probably the easiest objective out of the 3, but again, winning the Europa League and finishing in the top 4 with this team is going to be incredibly hard to do. As I'm running through the squad right now, again, it is a 4.5 star team, so pretty decent, and there is a lot of good young talent here as well. Dennis Zakaria, the very versatile midfielder that can also play centre-back, 82 rated, 22 years old. I'm sure you guys know all about Florian Neuhaus this year, 22 years old, 70 rated as well. You got Thuram, you got Elvedi, the young centre-half as well. So it's a very good young talented team, but the budget in the first season is pretty poor for a team with those sort of objectives. You can get it to around 25 to 27 million pounds to start with wage budget alteration, but again, really, there's not much money to play with. It is a decent team, but there are better ones in the Bundesliga right now. It is going to be tough for you to hit those 3 objectives in the first season, and that's why I'll definitely recommend Mönchengladbach if you're looking for a challenging career mode right from the very first season. But again, it's a fun team, it's a young team, it requires a rebuild, it's a long-term project, real stadium, 3 nice kits, definitely worth doing, and I was really excited to try my hand with them in this episode here. So as you can see, I put 7 players on the transfer list right from the get-go in the first season because whilst I don't normally sell like half the squad in the first transfer window, I would definitely recommend selling as many senior players in this Mönchengladbach team as you can in the first window, because again, you've got a very small budget to work with. 25 to 27 million pounds is not going to get you very far in FIFA career mode, so you need to make sure you raise as much cash as you possibly can, and if that means selling some decent players like Wendt, for example here, the left back is 76 rated, Tobias Strobel 76 rated, Fabian Johnson we were looking to sell as well, then so be it. These guys might be decent squad players that still have a role to play in the first team in the first season, but you need to improve this team right away if you can hit those 3 strong objectives. You need to bring in younger targets, and again, with just 25 to 27 million pounds, you gotta raise some cash instantly. You gotta start selling on the senior players here. So as you can see, we sold Strobel and Wendt right to begin with, and as you can see, I started to go after my targets directly after making those sales there. And my number 1 target for a Borussia Mönchengladbach career mode would be a new starting left back. Now you've got a decent young Algerian, but after you sold Wendt, the 33-year-old left back I think it is, you're going to want a new first choice that's got more first team quality and is far younger as well. My 4 options are on the screen for you right here. Alejandro Grimaldo is probably going to be out of your price range in season 1 unless you sold a star or have used a financial takeover, but the other 3 options are 3 players that I would recommend to literally anyone doing FIFA career mode this year. You got Ben Chilwell of Leicester City, who, as you guys know, I am a massive fan of, and the 2 Manchester City left backs, Zinchenko the Ukrainian and also Mendy the Frenchman as well. Now, in the case of Ben Chilwell, he's the highest rated out of the three at 81 overall and 22 years old, so you'll probably be paying the most amount of money to get the English left back to Germany. But the other two Manchester City targets, whilst they do start off lower rated at 80 overall and 79 overall in Zinchenko's case, they will be considerably cheaper. And in this career mode, you need to get good value for money with your deals, and that's why I would definitely recommend out of the three, the cheapest of the lot. Because whilst Zinchenko is the lowest rated, it'll probably cost you the least amount of money. You can get him for around his valuation, which is 14 million. We agreed a 15 million pound deal with Manchester City. And whilst Chilwell and Mendy are both higher rated, all three of these guys have the same potential. So whilst Mendy's 80 rated, Chilwell's 81, and Zinchenko does start off with the lowest overall at just 79, they all have the same potential, which is 85. And all three of them are good enough to become your first choice left back in the very first season. So again, look for good value for money deals in your Mönchengladbach career mode, and this one certainly represented good value for money. Alexander Zinchenko was my first signing, £15 million, our new first choice left back, highest rated left back we have here, and again, a 79 overall, just 22 years old, and 85 rated as well, 85 potential as well. This guy's got some fantastic stats on him already, with high medium work rates, the flair trait, really balanced physicals, and some great technicals, especially when going forward, with a good ball control and good dribbling stat and crossing stat as well. So Zinchenko was my first signing with this Borussia Mönchengladbach team, and again for £15 million, that really is a bargain. I know Chilwell and Mendy are higher rated, but again, because they all have the same potential, I definitely would look for the cheapest option out of the three, which is ordinarily always going to be Zinchenko in this team. And I started to sell a few more players here as well, including Yanks, the backup centre half, 76 rated, 29 years old, and again, whilst these guys still do have a part to play in the first season, you've got to raise as much cash as possible, man, again, because the board really don't give you much to play with in the very first window. So if you've got to sell these sort of players, whilst they do still have some value in the first season, it's worth doing. Yes, they've got some decent ability, but you need the cash more than you need the players, including in this case here, selling to buy Sipel, the backup goalkeeper, 74 rated, not bad for a bench player, but at 31 years old, I'd definitely opt to cash in the first season and get some money. We've got £4 million from Norwich City, and we look to reinvest in a younger player who's also better as well. Yes, after the sale of Sipel to Carrow Road, we went after a goalkeeper who I definitely recommend for anybody doing a Bundesliga career mode this year that wants a cheap backup goalkeeper with bags of potential. His name is Alexander Nubel. He currently plays for Schalke, and one of the biggest bonuses to this young man here is that he's out of contract at the end of the season, and therefore you can get him for around his valuation, which is just 7.5 mil. We paid $500,000 over that, which was £8 million. His wages are very cheap as well. You'd only be paying around 25 grand a week for the guy, and again, this guy starts off 75 rated. He's only 22 years old, and he grows 10 ratings to 85 at his full potential as well. And of course, whilst Jan Sommer will be your number one in the first 2 to possibly 3 years, it's really good to know you've got a great young goalkeeper that's 9 years younger than Sipel, who we sell to Carrow Road here, and is better already and will have the potential to become your number one in years to come. And for £8 million as well, it's an absolute bargain. And again, with this Borussia Mönchengladbach team in the first transfer window, what's the key? It's all about good value for money. And that's why with our third signing here, I also recommend this guy for anyone doing a Bundesliga career mode. It's Jordan Torunarigha. You saw us sold Yanks a moment ago there, and we get this guy in who is 6 years younger to replace him. He is a couple of ratings lower, but Torunarigha is a great young centre-half that gets to 83 at his full potential, so will be good enough to be your starting centre-back in years to come. And again, just like Nubel, this early 20-year-old has his contract up come the end of the year, which means you should be able to get him for close to valuation, which represents really good value for money. And again, he's going to grow really, really nicely whilst being a third choice option in the first season. In a couple years time, he'll probably be your starting left back. Just 21 years old. I think I said 23 a moment ago. They're just 21 years old, so incredibly young. He does have high medium work rates. Watch out for that. Not always great on a centre back, but he can play left back as well, so it's great for the versatility as you sold one of your left backs in the first season. And again, it's really good value for money, including this guy as well as we continue the theme. Yes, Dennis Geiger or Giger was the next player we went after here, and again, you can get this guy for around his valuation, which is just £5.5 million. That's the fee we agreed with Hoffenheim, plus a cheeky little sell-on clause as well. He'll probably take a pay cut in the first season as well, and only be on about 12 to £13,000 a week. And again, this guy represents really good value for money. That's the key with Mönchengladbach. You don't have much to work with in the first season, so you got to look for really good deals. Like Torunariga, he's only 21 years old, but he shows great potential. He starts off 73 overall, so he's not going to be going into your first 11 straight away, but he will be a bench player, and with 82 potential as well, he's going to grow really nicely as the years go by as well. So all those deals there, Zinchenko, Torunariga, Giger, and Nubel as well. All four of those signings were around valuation deals or just over the valuation, and that is exactly what you need to do in the Borussia Mönchengladbach career mode. Keep an open mind when you're looking for targets. If you can't get your main target, that's totally fine if you go for a secondary B or C option, if you will, if they represent better value for money. It's all about making sure you stretch those pennies in the first season due to the lack of funds given to you by the board. Our fourth of, I think it was 5 or possibly 6 signings in this episode here was Linton Miner. This is another player that I'm a big fan of in this year's career, one of the sort of hidden gems, if you will. You can get him for around 5.5 to 6 million, which is a little bit over his valuation, but he's 71 rated, only 20 years old. Again, he shows great potential, can play on both sides of the pitch, freestyle. What I love about this guy is he's absolutely rapid, really quick, great agility, great balance, and he also grows 13 ratings to 84 overall at his peak as well. Really good young talent. Yes, you will be paying a little bit over his valuation, but still well worth picking up if you've got the cash. But in terms of good value for money deals, you saw a few of them earlier. This is the best one of the episode, and I think I'll sign this guy in every Bundesliga career mode I do. It's Joshua Wagnermann of Hamburg. This is one of the best hidden gems in this year's career mode, guys. Now, he starts off 66 rated, but he grows 19 ratings to 85 overall at his peak, and with dynamic potential, you could get him into the high 80s. This guy is going to be a physical beast in years to come. He's already very quick with great strength. Imagine his physical stats at his peak at 85 rated. He can play on both sides of the pitch. He's got a 4-star week, but this dude, again, is one of the best hidden gems and cheap wonder kids to buy in this year's FIFA career mode. So we signed 6 players in the end for 40.8 million, raising 26.3 mil for 5 sales as well. So had a net loss of around 14.3 mil, which really wasn't that much. And again, when you look at the signs we made here, 6 new players to the team. Only Zinchenko will be a starter, but we managed to get good value for money with basically every single deal. We made this side far younger, far more exciting for the future, and a little bit better, I would say, as well, whilst leaving some cash in the budget for the January transfer window to play the pre-contract game, which I would definitely recommend you do with Borussia Mönchengladbach. Play the pre-contract game in pre-January, because you'll need to in order to get some decent cheap players on free transfers for next season. So in the end, as we would simulate to the end of the season, could we hit our very strong free objectives with Mönchengladbach? Well, as you can see, we did hit our league objective by 7 points, finishing in 4th place. Again, with a 4.5 star team, I guess you probably would be targeting nothing shorter than 4th place, really. We were in the end a whopping 15 points clear, 15 points behind the eventual winners Bayern Munich. But as I always say, you're not going to beat Bayern Munich to the title in the first season, regardless of what team you're using in the Bundesliga. So just let them have the title. You're not going to take it away from them. But again, 4th place, I would say, is definitely the minimum you'd expect with Mönchengladbach in the first season. Again, they're a 4.5 star team, a young team as well, and you've got to get that as well to keep the board happy. As for the DFB Pokal, we were asked to reach the last 16 of the competition, and as you can see, unfortunately, this was a massive failure. We knocked out in the second round of the competition. Couldn't even reach the round of 32 stage. Oh, yes, we could, but this was the round of 32 stage. We were beaten by the eventual winners, Bayern Munich, who won the domestic double. So really, whilst it was disappointing to get knocked out at a very early stage in round 2, I guess you can understand why. But despite the bad luck, it still would be considered a massive failure, as would the Europa League as well. Yes, unfortunately, we only hit one of our 3 objectives in this year's career mode, but you must say as well, in fairness, we were beaten by Barcelona in the semi-finals of the Europa League, who eventually won the competition as well, and Bayern Munich in the DFB Pokal. So, really, I think that even though we did fail 2 of our 3 objectives, you do have to give us a little bit of, I guess, sympathy in some way, really, losing to the eventual winners in both of those competitions and being beaten by far better teams as well. well. Regardless, I won't try and deny it was still technically a failure of a first season for Mönchengladbach. Whilst we did hit our league objective of finishing in 4th, which again really is the bare minimum you should be getting in the first season with this team. In the Cup and in Europe, whilst you could blame the bad luck of the Cup draws, it was still, no matter how you try and dress it up, a failure in the secondary objectives in the first season. But what I would say is this Borussia Mönchengladbach team and this Borussia Mönchengladbach first season is going to be a challenging one. You've got really tough objectives from the board in the first season. I can't believe they want you to win the Europa League in the first season. I think that's incredibly tough from the board. And again, with a really small budget as well. You know, this is definitely a career mode which is more for the serious CM players. This is definitely one I'd recommend for those that want a real challenge in the first season and a team it's just going to need a lot of work. It's going to be a long-term project. It will take you a while to topple Bayern Munich and become the best team in Germany, but it is certainly a fun challenge as well. They've got 3 great kits. They've got a lovely real stadium in the game as well. And again, with some decent young talent to add to in the likes of Elvedi and Neuhaus and Zakaria and company, it is certainly a fun career mode to do in this year's FIFA. It's challenging, but it will be a lot of fun, even though in the first season you will be frustrated with the lack of money, the lack of options you can sign, and of course the very tough objectives as well. This is, in its simplest term, a very challenging team to use in this year's career mode. But a fun one, and definitely worth recommending. But that was today's episode of Who to Sign For, guys, so big thank you for watching. Really hope you have enjoyed it, and if you did enjoy today's episode, then please do drop a like. Much love to you all, have a fantastic day, and I'll see you for the next episode of Who to Sign For very soon.